Do you love hard conversations? I don't think any one of us does. And I feel like Colette does such a good job validating that these things are difficult, but how important and life-giving and life-changing they are, and how much they shift not only relationships, but most importantly, our relationship with ourselves. So I just loved this woman. I think she's absolutely brilliant. I am so excited for you to hear this interview, to read her book. I think her work is so just like spot on and so helpful for our growth, for us to have meaningful relationships and on all of the good things. So let's get into it. I am so happy to have you here. I was mentioning to you that I listened to you on a podcast. I was like, this is so good. And this is really a difficult topic, no pun intended, difficult conversations. So why are hard conversations or conflict, shall I say, like so difficult for us?
I know it's so wired into how we are as human beings. And I think this is something that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. It's not just personality or the kind of household you grew up in. Certainly, if you didn't see conflict handled well, that's going to play a role. But really, this is deeply embedded in what it is to be human, that we have this neurobiological paradox that we're wired for both safety and connection. So we want to be close. We want to be known. We know how good it feels when you share something and somebody gets you and really listens. But at the same time, we're very, very susceptible to detecting danger in someone's facial expression, their tone of voice, because conflict or the possibility of saying anything that might upset someone feels so dangerous to connection. So it's really this push-pull, this conundrum. But I think the more we understand that, the more that doesn't have to hijack the actual conversation. Most people aren't dying to dive into a topic that feels awkward or uncomfortable, or people think it's going to make it worse or not lead to any change. So why bother? Of course, the opposite is what's true, that we share, and when we do it well, we feel closer and more connected.
I love that. That's so validating, I think. And it brings up the question for me, and I think about these things a lot. Do you think that, how there's a lot of couples that just don't do conflict, like they just like avoid it. It just doesn't exist. And
most people.
Sometimes, yeah. And then there's, the whole like conscious partnership idea and like really using conflict for closeness. And so do you think that even though we're wired to see conflict as a threat, in a sense, like, are we also wired to learn how to have healthy conflict?
Yes, great question. So really the primary task of emotional maturity is learning how to navigate conflict in a constructive way, because relationships are supposed to push our buttons. There's supposed to be conflict. And I think it depends what you think of when you hear the word conflict. Most people think, oh, I don't want to do that. But really, conflict might just mean, oh, you stepped on an old wound, an insecurity I had about myself when I was a kid, when you commented that way. And now I have the opportunity, if I can notice what's happening, bring my own self-soothing to it, but also share about it and open up to you, I have the opportunity to heal. You, my partner, have the opportunity to know me more deeply. We have the opportunity to feel more connected. So this is why when you know how to navigate conflict, it becomes a beautiful thing, not something to shy away from, but rather something to go, oh, what can we learn here? And how can we grow and deepen together? We've just got to accept that the initial instinctive reaction is probably going to have a little bit of fight or flight, a little bit of what I call the siren song of avoidance, where like Odysseus being drawn to the rocks, your brain is going to tell you, oh, don't say that. Don't make a big deal. It's not worth it, right? It's just going to make a to-do over nothing. All that is so automated. But if we can sit past that and go, wait a minute, what needs my attention here? Some things are about our own inner exploration, and we can feel contented by what we're able to explore on our own. But many things, if we say to our partner, hey, this is what came up in me, and we're not blaming or accusing or trying to control them, beautiful things can happen in that space.
So what I love about so much about what you said is there will always be like fear and discomfort. It's not like the goal is one day, you just it's so easy and it's just like, yay, we're gonna have a conflict. It's gonna be so great. Let's go.
Right, right.
So say more about that because I think like on my journey of healing, I've had so many of those stages where I was like, I will never be triggered or, like,
Yes.
then
And
like,
don't you wish? Yes.
it would be lovely, I
It would
think.
be lovely. It would be, I mean, theoretically, it would be lovely to never feel any pain or discomfort. But truly, if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, there is going to be some of this friction. And even in a healthy relationship, it doesn't have to mean there are big issues. And certainly, I'm not advocating for blowouts, unhealthy fighting, destructive conflict. And in fact, I identify that in my book as other forms of avoidance because you're not really self-disclosing what's important in a vulnerable way. And just quite simply, though, natural, good, healthy conflict naturally feels scary because it's scary to be vulnerable. Again, we want to do it. We like how it feels when it goes well, but we don't have a guarantee that of how the other person's going to respond. So it's taking a risk, and risks and uncertainty always feel a little bit uncomfortable. But having said that, what I see in my office and what I've seen in my own life, why I was inspired to write the book, is that once you wake up this muscle of taking a risk to be vulnerable, being a little more assertive, meaning being clear and direct, but being kind and tactful about it, right? You're not a jerk. Assertive doesn't mean aggressive. But once you start to do that and say, hey, the other day you made this comment and it stayed with me. And so I thought about it, and I'd like to just share with you how it landed inside of me if you're willing to listen. It actually really hurt my feelings, and I got curious about why. And what I realized is I used to get that message from my mom when I was little. I mean, I'm just making this up extemporaneously, but right, I'm not blaming, I'm not coming at you, I'm not saying, how dare you, but I'm also not swallowing it. And the more you do that, and the more you come forward in a way that gives your partner the best chance possible to hear you, the more you get a good response, the more your limbic system, which is your emotional nervous system, learns in real time. Okay, conflict feels a little scary as I approach it, but wow, it goes well most of the time. And then we start to be a lot less afraid. I mean, I am genuinely not that scared to get into it with my husband anymore, even to have a really big conversation about a big trigger. But I have other areas of my life that are still scary, like with a friend, if I have to confront something, or with a coworker, that can still feel very scary for me. So I just want to encourage people. Yes, it's always going to feel a little uncomfortable because it's uncertain and you're taking a risk, but it does get a lot better. And eventually the rewards, it's such a positive feedback loop that makes you want to confront things more.
That's beautiful. Colette, can you walk us through your journey? Like, why did you write this book? How did you get to a place where it feels good?
Yeah. And because I was not this way. So I was very much a people pleaser. I call it good girl-itis. I'm a very assertive person. I have a strong personality. I've never been quiet. It's kind of ironic that I wrote a book that has quiet in the title, but quiet's really a euphemism for avoiding. But I grew up in a household where I grew up in New York. My mom and dad are both very strong personalities, very verbal and vocal, strong-willed people. And my early childhood was really good, but then my parents started to argue, and they argued really badly, and they ended up getting divorced. And for a while, it was very unpleasant for me. And I would lie in bed. I mean, I can remember listening to them argue and having a stomach ache and just wishing it would end, and thinking to myself as a little girl, when I grow up, I'm going to have the perfect marriage and we'll never argue. And of course, what I associated conflict with was bad. I associated in my mind that my mom was difficult, right? Which is very much society's message to women that if we make waves or rock the boat, even if we say it nicely, we're difficult, we're a bitch. Look what happens when a woman tries to go into politics, like Hillary Clinton, right? I mean, the examples are endless, the way women are treated.
Too much. We're too much.
Too much. Too much. Too difficult.
Sorry, even when you were speaking about, okay, and then you kind of like express, and this is what it reminded me of and what it brought up in me. I was like, isn't that too, like, that was my instinct. Like, that's a lot to share. Even though I love that and I love to do that with certain people, but I can imagine, it's just like this feeling like, wow.
Right. Exactly. So that's part of it, that we're conditioned to think that we're going to be too much, or that we're seen as difficult, or we're nagging, or we're making a mountain into a mountain into a molehill, or molehill into a mountain. I think that's the way it goes, right? So there's all this stuff that's even semi-conscious that's holding us back from sharing. And there is nothing wrong. All your feelings are valid. So I took from my family, though, I don't want to be like that. I want to be the kind of person who doesn't rock the boat when it comes to my relationship. I want to be a good wife. I want to be somebody who isn't difficult. And I became that classic, what Gillian Flynn in Gone Girl calls the cool girl, right? Like, oh, you want to go to a strip bar? I don't care. I'm not threatened by that. That's one small example, but try to be the perfect wife. And I met this guy in college who seemed like the answer to my prayers. And I just wanted to be everything my parents weren't. So from the outside looking in, we seemed to have this idyllic life, the perfect white picket fence life. And everyone thought we were a great couple. But inside the relationship, I really wasn't expressing myself. I wasn't connected to my own needs for fear of how they'd be received, thinking I was too much, certainly a lot. And in fairness, I would get messages the few times I tried to share anything. I would get messages that it wasn't welcomed, that I was a pain in the neck. I would hear that I'm like being dramatic, or, things that were very painful. And looking back, my ex-husband was very, very avoidant, not emotionally connected. He's done a lot of work on himself, and we're both remarried, and all's well that ends well. But what I didn't do is know this middle ground way of, I owed it to myself to really figure out what I was feeling and needing and express it. And maybe it wouldn't have gotten answered, but I'll never know, and do it. And we ended up divorced when I had young kids. I lost all my money. I lost all my friends. It was a disaster area. But right before we got divorced, I went to a marriage counselor who was terrible. And that experience inspired me to go to grad school and become a couples therapist. So over the years, I've just seen the same dynamics, a version of the same dynamics playing out in my office so many times that I thought, I have to write this book, because it's mostly a problem people aren't even aware of how much they're avoiding, and it can blow up in your face one day. And it's not just romantic relationships. It really is at work, in family, with friendships. So it's really important to learn this method that I teach in the book of self-connected communication.
That's beautiful. Now we want to hear the happy ending, please. Yeah. Hello there. Thank you so much for watching, for being here. I appreciate you so much. And if you can just take one little moment and help me make this podcast a success and support us, please just subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave me a little comment. I want to hear from you. How's this landing for you? Is this interesting? What are you learning? What are your takeaways? Again, thank you for being here. I love you, and let's get back into it. So, your current husband, what makes that relationship safe for you to express? And obviously, I'm sure you did a lot of work on yourself, but it also sounds like he makes it safe too.
Yeah, I mean, he's had to do a lot of work, and we had a lot of hardships. I'm very much attracted to my opposite, which a lot of people are. So my husband's a numbers guy. He's an accountant. Now he works as a CFO. Emotions are very difficult for him. Communication is very difficult for him. And I am big and emotional and deeply feeling and very expressive, right? I do talk a lot. I have a lot to say. I have a very rich inner life. He is not like that. And we're a blended family. We each came to the marriage with two daughters. So we had a lot of rocky periods of really struggling to understand each other. And still, it can be hard. But I think a couple of things. One, I felt like he did really want to hear. I felt like I did really, maybe not always in the moment, but I felt like I could be myself with him, and that there's a difference between getting triggered, and sometimes we go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn because our brain gets hijacked, and we can come back and repair. It's going to happen to anyone. And being in a marriage where you feel like, wow, I really can't bring all of myself to this relationship or I'm going to be judged. And unfortunately, I did feel that with my ex-husband. There's a lot in social media now about dismissive, avoidant. And I know some social media isn't so great, but a lot of those pieces fit where, he had been raised in a very emotionally disconnected environment. I think he's learned a lot since then. And I don't think he shows up this way in his current marriage. I don't know, but that's the sense I get. But with me, there wasn't really a wanting to know me. And the difference is, if I had been more of the way I am now, I might have discovered, okay, this relationship isn't going to be able to be this. And then I would have had choices about, do I want to move forward and accept, or do I want to leave the marriage in a healthier way? I did not leave the marriage in a healthy way. So with this husband, I am unapologetic about it. I do come forward. If something bothers me, I know it's better to address it now. And the cool thing is, when you learn this method that I talk about in the book of self-connected communication, and you start to address small things as they arise, which I do with my husband, things don't build up. And these are not hour-long conversations. These are very quick little, once you get this muscle warmed up, hey, this happened. This is how it made me feel. This was the story in my head. Here's what I need. Oh, I didn't realize that. Thanks for sharing with me. You know what? This is what it brought up in me. And then we're done. And there's no accumulation of resentment and like a negative story that builds up over time about the other person. That's why it's so dangerous not to talk about it. So I'm committed to it. And when my husband is triggered, we take a time out, we come back to it when we're both regulated. And it's just like principles for relationship health that I think we're both committed to.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. And I have many questions about this, but I think before that, how do people know? I'm also divorced. And for the longest time, I would think that triggers are good and I need to keep working through them together. And I think that there's no black or white answer, I know, but I think it's very hard to tell for people, like, where is it like worth fighting for, the relationship, and where is it like healthy and where is it like no longer healthy, especially like the conflict, right? So what would you say to that?
So what do you mean though? Like, you mean issues that are coming up, or the way you're arguing, deciding whether to leave? Like, tell me a little more what you mean by that.
Yeah, maybe because you're an expert in the hard conversations, like, where is the conflict healthy and where is it no longer healthy? Like, where is that, the crossing of that line?
Okay. So I would say that whatever triggers you internally is always, I mean, it just is what it is, right? You can't help how you feel. You can't help that something has a charge, but you can help what you do with it. So if someone said something and we lined up 10 people, and I'm trying to let me think of an example that might make this like more fleshed out. Okay. So I'll just pull something very generic from a session without revealing, of course, any of my clients' stuff, but from something that came up today. So the wife had made a comment. Actually, they're not even married yet. The woman, it's a heterosexual couple, had made a comment that she thought was not really that big of a deal. The man took the comment as like, you're not a man. And that wasn't what she was intending to say at all. Now, if we lined up 10 people, they would all interpret it differently. If we looked out the beautiful window into your Costa Rican mountains, we would all describe something different because that's how it's all subjective. But that's how he took it. And he felt hurt, deeply hurt, ashamed, and angry. Now, unfortunately, in the moment, what he did with that was to lose his temper and to fire a bunch of bullets back and say, well, you're and called her some not so nice things and things he doesn't mean. Now, that's absolutely important to talk about and work through. And he's got to own that the way he felt it and the way he interpreted it is his own. She said the thing and it hurt him, and hopefully in repair, and we did get to some repair in the session, he can hear an apology. And he did get an apology, even though that wasn't how she intended the statement. I would never say that those things should be swallowed and not talked through. What did happen in this case, though, is the way it was handled was not healthy at all and caused more damage. So that's the part that can really be out of control. The trigger itself, never bad. It just is. We're all wounded. Even if you had an idyllic childhood, somebody hurt your feelings, I guarantee at some point. And your brain's job is to remember and remind you of anything that seems like that is happening again, because your brain doesn't want you to be happy. It wants you to live. So it's trying to alert you to danger. So in this moment, she's like, but what I said was, it wasn't even that. And it's not fair that he takes it that way. Okay, you're not to blame, but yes, it landed that way. And if we can hear, I had no bad intention, but the thing I said hurt my partner in this way. And I can show care for that because my partner's willing to take ownership and not come at me with anger and intensity. Then we're able to resolve. So it really comes down to how you handle it. And if you shut down, push your partner away, stonewall, criticize, blame, make assumptions, like tell the other person what they're thinking and why they did it and why. None of those things are healthy or are ever going to get you a good response. Ever.
Or shame, right? That's another one.
Yes, well, and we're all very sensitive to shame. I mean, unless you're a sociopath or genuinely high in narcissism, I mean, hearing feedback, I think this is also important for people to understand. Even if you're confident and you had a good childhood and whatever, and you believe in communication, it's still hard to hear when you love somebody, hearing that you hurt them, you let them down, you disappointed them. I mean, we have to, as adults, learn to tolerate that, but it's hard to hear that. So when we come forward to tell someone, hey, this thing you did or said hurt me, we have to be able to be truthful about our feelings, but we've got to be tactful and just know that if we're coming with any assumption or blame, it's just too hard for people collapse into shame and then they can't hear us. And that's why people get defensive or shut down.
Yeah, totally. And how does a good apology sound like? In this case, I think this is a really good example where well, it wasn't my intention.
Yes.
So it could be like, yeah, it could be like, I'm sorry you feel like that. Not helpful. So how do we acknowledge, validate, and apologize when we've hurt somebody's feelings and it wasn't our intention at all?
Okay. I love this because this is so powerful if you can do this. So everybody, in fact, another session today, a husband was saying to me, but I think intentions do matter. Okay, they don't, not for this. So intentions matter to you and your character. And this is shame-based. We don't want to feel like we're bad people. We don't want to feel like we're bad partners. We don't want to feel like we're bad people or partner in our partner's eyes. And that's really why we want to share our intentions. And it's so human. So I'm going to tell you the apology thing, but I just want to bring in one element from my own life that just happened. I have this new opportunity, media opportunity. I don't want to get into too many details, but because if God forbid this person hears, I don't want her to feel like I'm sharing her personal stuff. But somehow I inadvertently, and it was totally unintentional, it seems like, I still don't even know what's really true, but it seems like I must have gone over someone's head or made them feel that way. And a woman that I used to have a very nice relationship with seems very angry at me. And putting two and two together, it's a working relationship. It's not a close relationship, but it was very warm and friendly, and it went ice cold. And reading between the lines, it seems like in the process of setting up this opportunity, I didn't handle it the right way. Now, somebody else there suggested I do it the way I did it. So I was just doing what I was told. I did not know. There's no way I could have known. But I decided to send an apology to this person. And I think this is very instructive for how you do it. I could feel the wanting to, first of all, to assume that I know why she's mad. It seems very obvious to me, but the truth is I don't know. And she's the only one who can speak for herself. So I was very careful about that part. The second piece is I could feel the wanting to say why I did it that way. Well, I was told, and if I had known, I wouldn't have done it, right? I want to defend myself because I feel so bad that I messed up the relationship, that I hurt her, that I offended her. I mean, I hope it's going to be repaired. We'll see. So when I apologized, what I did was I sent her just impact-based apology. And I didn't get into the weeds on the explanation, and I didn't assume I knew. I said, after our conversation today, I sensed there was a little bit of distance, right? Very neutral language about what I observed. And as I drove back to my office, I thought that it might be that I unintentionally made a misstep. If that's the case, I am so sorry. I really respect you and I value our relationship. And I just wanted you to know that there's no need to respond, but I wanted to let you know. So no explaining why I did it. No assuming that I know what she's upset about when she hasn't had a chance to say. No defending my character. If I hurt you, I am sorry. That's what it's about. And, we'll see how it goes going forward. But same thing that I had this guy that I coached this guy and this woman to do in my session earlier today, which is that she felt very misunderstood and unfairly accused of saying something she didn't say. But when we were able to be with those parts of her and realize this is not about your character, you didn't do anything wrong. We sometimes have to tell ourselves that. Then she was able to say, I'm so sorry that I hurt your feelings with my comment. I can see why it landed the way it did for you, and I really regret that I hurt you. Nothing about intentions. Shouldn't have to agree with it. It makes sense given what you've shared. And I am sorry. If you ran someone over with your car backing out of your driveway and you didn't see them, right? Are you a bad person? No, you didn't see them. But would you get out and while they're bleeding out, be like, wait, I didn't see you. I need to explain to you why I ran. No, you called the emergency. Like you'd be like, oh my God, come here. I'm so sorry. I ran you over. Let me make you feel better. So it's the same as physical pain. We hurt someone. We just want to own that we hurt someone. And our character really, as an emotionally mature adult, it's really not about our own character at that moment. We have to tend to that in ourselves.
Wow. This is such a good example. I am so bad at this. I don't know if you know. Do you know the Enneagram? Do you work with the Enneagram?
Yes. Okay. I don't work with it much, but I've done it. What number are you?
Take a guess. Which number would be terrible at this?
Okay, I really don't know. Tell me.
What?
1. Okay, you know what? I don't know it well enough. I only know mine. I'm a 7.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm a 7 with a background 4 and 2. 1 is like the helper and 1 is the independent and the 7 is the enthusiast.
Yes. So ones we cannot be wrong or bad. We can't be bad. We're very scared of it. Yes. And my friends always tell me, like, You did nothing wrong, but you hurt my feelings.
Yes.
And I need to hear that. That sentence actually really calms my nervous system. I'm like, okay, I'm not bad, but I hurt their feelings. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I'm really going to take this away from this conversation. This is very helpful. And I almost like don't want to send this to my friends because they're gonna be like, yes, this is what we've been telling you to do. You don't need to explain, but just say you're sorry. And it's really hard because also once we put so much effort into being good. So because we're constantly putting effort into being good and then we actually mess up, it's like, no.
Terrible. You feel terrible. And
Yes.
Marina, what you just said is exactly like when your friends say that to you and it's so soothing, that totally makes sense. And I think for all types, it's very helpful to say that to people. Now, sometimes we do feel like someone did something wrong, so we don't have to say it if we don't mean it. But in the case where it's true, it's so soothing for this exact reason. Everyone struggles with this, really feeling like you're a bad person. But also, we can say this to ourselves. Like, I had to, before I sent that apology, I had to really have a dialogue. And this is why I call it self-connected communication. I had to realize that I was so upset that I somehow did the wrong thing when I never would want to hurt anyone. And now I might have messed this relationship up. I had to first say to myself before you communicate, like how you talk to you first sets you up for success. So to say to myself, okay, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to. I know my character. I know it was an innocent mistake. And this doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good inside. And I had to soothe my own inner child that, like, it's okay to mess up. I know my good intentions. I actually didn't do anything wrong, really, at all, but I can still try to repair the relationship.
I really hope it works out, first of all. And how do we do that soothing process? Like, can you walk us through it practically? Were you literally like, okay, open the email and then first I'm going to close my eyes and talk to myself?
Yes, exactly. Okay. So, of course, I give a lot of detailed information in the book, but let me give you the cliff notes because I think even a little bit of this goes a long way. And once you make this more of a habit, it changes the way you feel about yourself and the way you communicate too. So, it is a simple practice. You can close your eyes, or what I do is I put my hand on my heart because I find that grounding and it helps me connect to my inner child. Some people don't love that language. Even before I became a therapist, I might have thought that sounded kind of woo-woo. Now I'm totally into it. But, whether you want to think of it as like a real distinct part of self, which psychologically we do have, or a metaphor, thinking about the little you, the little girl you were is still living. And, in my wrinkled, sun-spotted body, she's still in there and she needs me. That's our vulnerable self. So when I do this, I feel more connected to her. And I will just get curious about what am I actually feeling. It really starts with naming your emotions and not your interpretations, not the story. Like, there was a part of me that was indignant, like, how dare you get mad at me for something I didn't do, right? That's just human. So I sat with that part and I noticed that reaction, and there was tension in my chest about that, like almost an anger. But as you sit with it, what I could see is underneath the anger that I was like hurt and embarrassed that this thing happened in a professional relationship. And that's why I felt angry. So then once we know how we feel, we can talk directly to that part. And there's two things that are the most powerful: self-validation and self-compassion. And it's really simple, but the act of it's not enough to know in our head, oh, I should be nice to myself. You got to actually do it as an act. So I will just say, oh, I'm feeling angry. I'm embarrassed. I'm hurt. Right? It's okay. It makes sense that I feel the way I do. Like, this whole situation is so awkward and awful, right? My feelings are totally valid. And saying to that younger part of me, I am here with you. I have what I call a sage self. We all have it, a wise, loving adult, bringing that part to that little girl. And the self-compassion piece is just being really loving, talking to yourself like you would a friend. So once we've validated, your feelings make sense. Of course you feel that way. This is horrible. Then it's being like, you're a good person, right? This doesn't define you. It's okay to make mistakes, right? This is a moment of suffering. And I got this from Kristen Neff's work
Oh,
on
I love her work.
Me too. Me too. It's really changed the way I experience myself. And self-compassion is so powerful. People are so hard on themselves. But one of the pieces of her work that she pulls from Buddhist tradition is the suffering mantra. And part of it, right, recognizing this is a moment of suffering. Let me be kind to myself in this moment. And part of it is going, other people are suffering in the world right now with me. And that universality is very powerfully soothing because it reminds you, and I did this just the other day, somewhere else in the world, somebody did the wrong thing. They feel just like I do right now, right? And they're just going, oh, this is so bad, right? And they're embarrassed. And connecting to the fact that you're not alone in it makes you feel so much better. That's all part of self-compassion. So that simple practice of just, what am I feeling? Search for it in body, because some people struggle to name emotions. Search for it in your body sensations. Be curious. And then be accepting and validating and offer yourself some compassion. When in doubt, talk to you like you would your best friend. Most of us are nicer to someone who's trying to mug us on the street than we are to our own selves.
100%. And I'm sure this helps. If your husband is a one, I'm sure it helps him a lot because we're also the most critical, self-critical number in the Enneagram.
Yes.
And Kristen Neff's work is brilliant. I also like to use I don't feel safe right now, or I'm in a trauma response. That also really helps me as like
to name it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you're not it anymore. Like it's like there's a separateness. Oh, okay, I'm like observing this reaction that I'm having.
Yes, and actually, I love that, and I love the naming of it, because what we're doing in the practice I just described too is you're harnessing your observing ego. You're bringing that presence to witness your experience, and even a little bit of separation, which naming it, like you said, gives you even more. We get so blended with the thing, the story, the emotions, what's happening. If we can pull out a little, there's often just some perspective and softening there.
Yeah, totally. So I can already hear many women, especially listening to this, and they're like, this is great, but my partner would never do this. One, and two, like, if you're dating or you're like in the beginning stages or not even necessarily, I know in my marriage, like I didn't really, like you, I didn't share my needs. I didn't even know what my needs were. What would you say to that? Do you feel like a lot of men are willing to get on this boat?
So, okay, yes and no. I think society's changing a little bit. Some men at least are waking up to this. And I do see in my office a lot of men saying, I didn't want to come here. And now I'm surprised by how much I love this. So you can't drag someone there. You can't force them. And I absolutely want to acknowledge that there are going to be people, as there are in my life, that you communicate in this way and you don't get a good by the way, the person I sent this message to didn't even give me the courtesy of a response.
Wow.
Yeah. And I sent a really nice, it wasn't easy for me to do that. So that didn't feel great, but I did my part. I showed up. I acknowledged, I made a repair attempt, and I'm going to assume that whatever that is about her, and that part's on her, right? So what it is really is that you can't say that everyone's going to meet you, but I will say much of the time, as I now live my life this way, and it doesn't mean your marriage is going to go well or your friendship or your work situation, but it does mean you give the other person the best chance possible to hear you. And the beauty is that then you get information about what a relationship can and cannot be. When I'm working with people in a couple or a dyad, usually there's a mess on both sides of the street to some degree. If your side of the street is clean, You don't have to, with someone you're dating for 2 months, you don't have to unburden your whole childhood wound. But you can say, hey, when I didn't hear from you for 3 days after we had a great date, it was surprising and it made me feel a little unsettled. I really need more consistency in communication, even in early dating. Is that something you can offer? When you come forward like that, that's vulnerable. That's clear. That's assertive. You're naming what happened. You're not blaming and accusing. You're not telling yourself you're too much and, oh, I'll push this person away. Fuck that, right? Like if someone goes away because you said that, it may not feel great in the moment, but long term, you are way better off. So, really, what I want people to know is this process I'm teaching in the book, and that is my mission and my work. It is something you do for you. The relationship to me is even really secondary. Yes, it's good for your relationship, but this is something you do for you because your voice deserves to be spoken. Your needs matter. It's healthy to come forward and say what you want and need. We are actually designed for that too. We get sick physically and mentally when we're not just clear and honest. So, if not everybody's going to receive it great, but you know what happens? The more you do this and your confidence grows and you feel connected to yourself, the more you realize when they don't respond well, you can handle it.
Yeah, beautiful. And what would you say to the person who's so terrified, maybe doesn't even know their needs, like has no idea, has no connection, and then so terrified to voice them? Besides, like, of course, like the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely start small. I mean, I want to also acknowledge that it's hard for people who haven't had a lot of trauma, or even though I had parents who divorced, my parents were very loving toward me and very responsive to my needs when I was young. So that's a big advantage. My life experience isn't totally that my needs don't matter. Now, I have had a lot of people who made me feel like my needs don't matter. So that's mixed in there. But some people, it has never been safe to voice a need. They have to adaptively learn to need nothing just to survive their environment. So this is a tall order. Now, I do tend to a lot of this in detail in the book, a lot more about identifying your needs and then deciding with a lot of discernment how much, depending on the relationship, you're going to come forward with. But what I would say is start really, really small, because this is going to feel very scary and very confusing. Pick something. Maybe it's not even with a romantic partner. Pick the safest person in your life or the relationship with the least risk to lose, and pick something on a scale of 1 to 10 that bothers you at like a 2 or a 3. Like my office mate, maybe I would pick to say, you said you'd clean the coffee machine. You didn't. And when you didn't, I felt all kinds of things. Something that even can be scary. So
Yeah.
yes, yes. And in fact, I get more scared by those things than I do with my husband, but this is also what I do for a living. So pick something really small. And even if you can't say it to the person, start with the process with yourself. See if you can get curious inwardly about, wow, and this is why I give a whole blueprint. I call it the self-connected communication blueprint, and a lot of questions to ask yourself to help people figure out what they're needing, what old wounds are getting activated, what their child parts are feeling. And then maybe you don't even decide to come forward initially, but you start to do this practice for yourself of, oh, this is what I needed. A lot of times what we need is surprisingly, sometimes it's to solve a problem or a behavior change, but a lot of the time we need reassurance or comfort. We miss that part completely, right? I got the message that I wasn't good enough. What I really need to hear is that you don't see me as a failure. And that can be very vulnerable to say to somebody, but wow, when we know that that's what it's about and we put it out there and somebody says much of the time that they're not thinking or seeing us the way we fear or feel. And when we can hear, oh my God, I think you're amazing. Wasn't thinking that at all. Like it's totally okay. It is so healing. And without any risk, there's no reward.
This is amazing and so helpful. And I'm definitely one of those people with a complex history. And so, yeah, I know how hard that is. And my clients, this is a big thing we work on, is like, the cutest thing. It's not really funny, but it's cute because I went through it too. It's like at first they're like, well, I don't have any needs. And then it's like, well, shouldn't I give myself all my needs? Like, I'm not supposed to ask anybody. I need to be self-sufficient. And I'm like, well, you are a human being. So you definitely have needs that other people can meet for you, And
Yeah.
yeah.
The trauma response, we can become so hyper independent. So this is also lost. I just have to say, yes, you're the primary caretaker of you. And your partner, if you have one, is a secondary caretaker. We can't expect anyone to make us happy or make us whole or heal all our wounds. But it is part of attachment science, the way we're wired, that we do have relational needs. We need to know, and this is from the work of Dr. Sue Johnson and emotionally focused couples therapy. She really brought attachment theory to the forefront in couples work, that you need to know, I'm safe with you. You will be there for me when I need you, right? These are not nice to have things. These are really important things. I need to know that you will be responsive to me and engaged. Like those are normal relational needs. So if you're saying to somebody, hey, you're in a relationship and you had a horrible time and you're saying, hey, I need you, I need some support. Yes, that's human, that's normal. And you do have the right to ask for that. We don't get all our needs met unconditionally, but it is normal to ask for that. And if we have a history of trauma and nobody ever tended to us, little kids are walking around so adultified and self-sufficient that a lot of adults they've totally disconnected from what they need completely.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I think that's really important. We're starting to wrap up, which is so sad because I wanted to have to ask you so many questions. Is there anything else that you feel like is really important to mention about healthy, hard conversations?
Yeah. Yeah, that, we talked a lot about why it's scary, just really that these things are going to go a lot better than you think. And that the power is in preparing first. And I've talked a lot about that, but I really just want to punctuate it and simplify it a little. That much of the reason, we're already scared of it a little bit because we don't know how it'll go. Then we avoid it and the feelings get bigger and we get passive aggressive or reactive and things come out sideways. And then we go, see, this is why conflict's bad. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But really, when you take the time to get clear first, even if it's to come forward and say, you know what, I don't really know what I need. I just know I felt something and I just want to be open with you about it. I'm still working on it. I'm still processing it, right? That's legitimate too. But the more we prepare first and we get clear and we dig for what's underneath the surface, it's never about the dishes. It's about the old wounds. It's about our own insecurities that we feel inside. We all have them. We're all, as human beings, afraid of abandonment and rejection, even if we're not aware of it. It's deep down. It's wired into the fact that we need other people to survive and thrive. So dig for those things and get really clear. Wow, is there something about what happened that reminds me of times in the past? Most of the time, the way we're interpreting it is through an old wound. And we don't want to project that onto somebody. That's not going to go well. But when we come forward and it's a very simple formula, this happened, I felt this, here's what I need, right? I need to know it's okay to make a mistake. I need to know you're not going to fire me because I messed up. I need to know you're not going to leave me because I admitted something embarrassing to you. Whatever the case, that you're going to be amazed at how many people will respond well to you because vulnerability naturally invites vulnerability. We have mirror neurons, so we send signals of safety when we come forward this way. people, without even thinking about it, they start to open up and be on that same channel. It's tremendously healing, and nothing feels better than taking a risk and getting a great response. And I just want to encourage people that will, you may be amazed how much more this happens than you might guess, even with a partner that you think. I've had people write me and be like, I read your book and I didn't think it would work with my husband, and I tried it and I couldn't believe how different of a response I got. So give it a shot.
I love that. And of course, your book. I cannot wait to read it. I'm so excited to read it. Is there any other place people can find you, work with you?
Yes, yes. So my book, The Cost of Quiet, available wherever books are sold. And then I am very active on Instagram at Colette Jane Fehr, and Colette has one L and Fehr is Fehr. Also, my website is ColetteJaneFehr.com, and I have a great Substack where I share a lot of free relationship information for all relationships called Secrets from a Therapist. So you can subscribe there. And I do have a lot of free tools on my website too. And of course, I work with people coaching online and in my office as a couples therapist.
Amazing. And you work with people all over the world, or are
Yeah.
you only licensed
Yeah.
in?
Well, if it's for couples therapy, it has to be in the state of Florida where I live, but I do relationship coaching. So under my other company, I work with people all over the place.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. I loved every part of this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.